Okay, let's look at the last element, the development of slavery. And here we look at migration as a theme. And this type of migration is a forced migration, because a lot of slaves did come from Africa along the Middle Passage. We're going to talk about transatlantic trade. We're going to talk about the Middle Passage later on when we talk about mercantilism. But the Middle Passage brought a lot of African Americans from Western Africa against their will through force. So we're going to talk about the development of slavery in Virginia. How did it impact Virginia's development? And slavery is very important in that, in Virginia's development and in the development of the southern colonies. Again, slavery is going to develop because of the production of tobacco. Tobacco is going to be a very labor-intensive crop. That means it's going to take a lot of work to break the field, to get it ready to plant tobacco, to clear it, to plant the seed, to nurture this tobacco, and then to bring it in for harvest and package it up, send it where it needs to go. So so we see, and this is a fake chart here, it's not a real one, just one I threw together, but you could probably look up, there is a chart like this. I couldn't find one. And anyway, the growth of slavery and tobacco in Virginia is going to be synonymous with one another. As tobacco trade increases and the export of it increases, so is the need for slave labor is going to increase along with it. So on a test or some other document-based question in another class, you might see something like this. You might have to ask, what is the theme here? And the theme is, as tobacco production and exportation increases, so does the need for slave labor. Alright, so we look in the southern agriculture, we look in the southern colonies. By 1750 we see a lot of agriculture. In Virginia, particularly in the purple here, we see the little tobacco leaves. A lot of tobacco cultivation even in 1750. And here's another chart. Tobacco imported by England 1705 to 1775. We still see in 1705 through 1775 an increase even in the 18th century at the importance of tobacco cultivation in Virginia and its economy. Now, initially we talked about that indentured servitude, both whites and blacks, for a short duration of time. When I said that, 4 to 7 is not a short period of time, but it is compared to a lifetime of bondage. And after Bacon's rebellion, the impact of it is significant, because we see this impact between these lower class yeoman frontier farmers, who don't have land like the gentry, tidewater, wealthy plantation owners have. And we see that in our study of Bacon's rebellion, that a big impact of that down here at the bottom is that a lot of wealthier people who were in charge, the elite planters of Virginia, thought of indentured servants as troublesome. Even though indentured servitude is going to last until the Revolutionary War, it will be replaced. Indentured servitude will be replaced as a main source of labor by importing slaves from Africa. And then in the late 1600s, Virginia is going to pass a law in the House of Burgesses that says that African slavery, the slaves will be in bondage and bonded to labor for the rest of their life. Not only them, but their children and their grandchildren, and on and on and on. So slavery ingrains itself in this peculiar institution, as they call it, quote, peculiar institution of the South, develops itself. So the first shipment of slaves landed in Jamestown in 1619, and slave labor was used to plant and harvest labor-intensive agriculture, especially tobacco. So slavery becomes an institution in the South, and as we go forward in this class, and as we look at these standards, you're going to see how slavery really defines America in a large respect. And in our conflicts, as we move westward, we're going to see that slavery is going to be a big issue. Even today, in our race relationships, we see that our having slavery impacts us today. Alright, so the growth of African population is in the language of our standards. It says African American population will explode in the New World as the expansion into new land created more need for slave labor. If we look over here in this chart, we see that a general trend here is that each year from 1790 to 1860, the number of slaves will increase from over 500,000 to we see almost 4 million slaves in the United States by 1860. Now, what does this mean? It means that then, and between then and now, and even to now, that we have a large African culture in the United States. But in Virginia, that although the Africans were enslaved, they maintained cultural practices. You know, African culture is still very much part of culture in America today, and we can hear it in the music. We can see it in dance. We can see it in art and literature. This is very much part of America, this culture. And what's the theme here? The theme is movement, physical migration from West Africa to the colonies, especially Virginia. And we talked about Europeans coming. That was free migration, but this is forced migration. And culture is also a theme here. So have we met our standards? So let's look at this. It says explain Virginia's development, include the Virginia Company, tobacco cultivation, relationships with Native Americans such as Powhatan, development of the House of Burgesses, Bacon's Rebellion, and the development of slavery. And that is the end of substandard 1A. That's a lot of stuff there, but it is finished. If we can go back and watch this video as many times as you want to try to get an understanding of this particular substandard. Social Studies U.S. History Standard 1, Substandard A.